Back in 1992, a British band formed called The Cutting Edge. Now, if you're around my age, you might remember the movie The Cutting Edge from the same exact year. It's about the angry hockey player. He's just so filled with rage, but he's injured, so he becomes an ice dancer and learns about beauty and partnership. Great, story there. I only watched it because I was 13 or 14 and trying to sneak into Alien 3. It was R-rated. We got kicked out, and so the only other movie we could watch was The Cutting Edge. So I remember it. Now, I don't know if the reason that this Cutting Edge band changed their name is exactly because of that movie, but they did change it that year to Delirious with a question mark. So it's Delirious? So in 1994, the lead singer of Delirious, he married the bass player's sister. Some bands wouldn't really work with that, but it was good for them. They worked it out. The next year, Martin, the lead singer, and his wife Anna, the bass player's sister, they got into a serious car accident. The kind of car accident where you're just not sure if they're going to live, the kind of car accident where everyone's attached to the tubes and the doctors are having to have those difficult conversations with friends and family. Of course, the band stopped touring and stopped doing what they normally do. Of course, the friends and the family came to the hospital. It's a Christian band with Christian followers, so you can imagine the amount of prayers reaching out for Martin and Anna. You can imagine the discomfort that people had with all the beeps on the machines and the conversations with those doctors. You can imagine that when they did survive, how much that experience changed each of them, the people who were hurt and the people who supported them, and how much that experience changed the band as a whole. Now, over that time, after rehab, after the emotional struggles of getting back to regular routines, after so many tears of pain and fear, that very next year, Martin finally started to write songs again for Delirious. And can you imagine how that experience changed his sense of songwriting and music and faith and love and the lyrics and the point of the songs? So that year he wrote I Could Sing of Your Love Forever, which the band sang for us last week. And he also wrote that year, Did You Feel the Mountains Tremble, which we just sang in worship just before this sermon. The band went on from there to make about 20 more albums. Martin had solo projects. He and his wife had art and dance projects in there. And still, through all that, through a whole career in music, when they looked back over 30 plus years together, the most beloved songs that they ever made were the two that were written right after Martin came out of the hospital. Imagine what that felt like to come out with new life. He was almost dead, and now he's given new life. He and his wife were almost gone, but they felt saved for a fresh start. And there was something, terrible. Somewhere in their subconscious, they knew that something fearful and terrible was bearing down on them, but they were liberated from that bad ending and liberated for this new beginning. Some of us have had this thought, I just have to assume Martin had the same thought, that he was brought back to offer some message of peace and hope and love and new life. Which makes sense because their songs, unlike most praise bands, their songs are almost all about praise. What can I do for you? Which is our theme last week. But Delirious often sings about something a little different. They sing about making a change. They have songs about, in this case, dancing upon injustice. They sing about not just washing away the sin in the blood of the Lamb, as the old classic song says, but they sing about God's stream of happiness washing away our brokenness so that we can live full and abundantly. Some of these songs are more about action than just faith. In our song today, Did You Feel the Mountains Tremble? You may have noticed that these themes of injustice and brokenness, they're really serious, heavy topics. They're serious topics in our real life outside of song. Some of us can't even watch the news because of what we see still going on in Gaza. Some of us are so pained by what we still see in the Ukraine. I think a lot of us, if we really saw what's happening in South Sudan, we couldn't possibly bring our eyes to watch that news. Or closer to home, we're just so sick of the injustice that pours out of our constant political coverage. lies upon lies and promises of cruelty and vengeance. We can't even fathom how folks can support those ideas and where they can come from. What kind of worldview would lead you to imagine that and champion that? Some of us are truly scared. What could happen if? And so we don't watch. Too serious. Or brokenness in our own lives. Some of us have been in these situations like Martin's and Anna's car accident. Maybe it was cancer for you, maybe it was heart disease, or the doctor didn't even know. Maybe it was an addiction or a bout of mental illness that still is reaching out for you. Maybe it was suicidal ideas. Maybe it is thoughts of suicide. Or maybe your issues of brokenness are not as dramatic, but wow, it just feels so bad to feel so incomplete. When you know that the source of your real soul is whole. And so you say, well, why can't I get control of all of this in my life? Why doesn't God intervene with the things that I don't have control on? Why does it feel like the world is always against me? Why is it that just one red light can trigger so many other pains in my life? Why does it hurt just to be? So did you feel, it's not a praise song, did you feel as about responding to those really serious, heavy things? It's about grounding ourselves when the mountains are trembling. But does the song sound serious? If you're watching online, you might go back and listen, or maybe you listened beforehand and you know there's joy in there. It's not like the first song we sang in worship, which sounds like a German march all ordered. This is a fun song. In the fun song, one of the lines that we just sang here is a time of jubilee is coming. Jubilee, jubilant, joyful. So what is a jubilee? Jubilee is a biblical idea. Isaiah in the 6th century BCE, and then Jesus in the 1st century CE, he jumps onto this idea, and it might sound familiar to you now. But in their contexts, the economy was so broken. Just the way money worked was so out of control, and people felt so oppressed and hurt that no normal person could really just get ahead. Everyone was on the edge of that one paycheck, compared to today's time. For most people in that circumstance, it just took so much work to survive. And it's not their fault. It just takes work to stay in balance. And it's not one person's fault that the economy is so out of balance, but the people who have the most power like to keep it that way. So for Isaiah and for Jesus, and some would say for us, the whole system, the whole economic system was rotten. And Isaiah's idea, and Jesus jumped onto this, he just said, erase the debt. Just get rid of it. Cancel debt. Enough of just being loaded in what we owe. And that's what Jubilee is. It's the idea in the Jewish culture that every 50 years, we try to make things manageable for the people who've been so buried by their finances. Now today, if you ask someone what they think about a Jubilee, they'd probably say, that's irrational. I mean, what would the banks wouldn't even work if they couldn't loan money and expect to get that interest back. The whole system of the world would kind of fall apart if we just canceled debt every 50 years. And to that, Jesus would respond, okay, a time of Jubilee is coming. Who cares if the banks fail? If they know this happens every 50 years, if they know that we would prefer to trust a system where people are taken care of more than profits, maybe they'd change their business model. So a time of Jubilee is coming. That lyric, it means that the economic model is going to erase poverty. It's going to erase the stress of being poor. And if we do that, if we even imagine that God would come down and snap God's finger and change things the way that God hopes that we change things over time, if we could just dream of a Jubilee, maybe we're not as stuck anymore. If we could imagine these little actions that could take us out of that stuckness and help liberate the people who are beholden to it, help liberate slaves, help families be whole again. Just for a moment, what could it be to breathe without the pressure of finances on us all the time? And that's exciting. That's exciting news. So the song should be jubilant. And therefore, to injustice and to brokenness, God says joy is stronger. The chorus of this song also says, fling wide your heavenly gates. And It's a religious song, so of course we're going to have religious imagery, but just take that phrase first, fling wide your gates. What does that mean? It means that really all are welcome, really welcome for who they are, without any asterisks. Everyone is welcome to be yourself. But this is a religious song, so these gates are not just about, many of us, we live our lives hoping that these gates can be open for trans kids to feel safe and women to be empowered to be their full selves in the boardroom and anywhere. We hope that the gates are flung wide open so that people of color can live free without fear. We have all these ideas, but the idea that heaven's gates are wide open, that means God agrees. God wants people to have space to be their full selves. God wants people to be free of the injustices that hold them down and hold them away from their real selves. God says, to that judgment and exclusion, love is stronger. The last line that we sang before the sermon, dancers who dance upon injustice. In confession, I wish I knew how to do this better. I wish I knew how to not get so burdened by all the bad news around us. Maybe when I get a little closer to the Spirit, I might learn a little bit. But for now, that's a prophetic message, and it's not too unlike the quote on the front of the bulletin. If you're watching online, you can always get the bulletin from our Facebook or from our website. But it says from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. And dancers who dance upon injustice are fighting for the way to change lives with dance, with art, with song. So they fight heavy despair with hope that is stronger. Now, a lot of this song, Did You Feel the Mountains Tremble? It resonates with Psalm 46. Earlier in the service, we read a special translation of that. But the musicians left out probably the most famous line from Psalm 46. So I want to move from talking about the chorus to talking about how Psalm 46 and this song kind of overlap. So in a nutshell, right at the beginning of Psalm 46, the mountains, yes, they tremble, they shake. Sometimes mountains crumble, but do not fear. God is your refuge, even in those stressful times. And the oceans, certainly they roar and they foam. Sometimes it's a hurricane. Sometimes against those rock walls, the oceans are so hard they knock the rocks down into the water. I can't imagine swimming in a place like that. But do not fear, is what God says. In the second section of Psalm 46, there's a mighty river. The idea, imagine, it says there's a mighty river that runs through the nation, a river whose streams make God laugh. It's an image of just how God's love is infused into all things, not just one kind of city that's metaphored as God's home, but the whole planet, the whole world, our whole lives. Imagine these arteries of love and these capillaries that come into every part of us, every action of us. That's the way the world is shaped. And yet, what the psalm says is you still see nations in an uproar, even though they're fed by this love. You still see kingdoms tottering on themselves. We certainly see that, even though they are brought God's love as a source. But that's sadly our reality. It's also true that love has not dried up. So do not fear when you see the opposite of what is intended in the world. In the third section of the psalm, other translations, they sort of insinuate that God is causing desolation. Both of those are really loaded words to imagine that God causes any pain, and much of desolation is this sense of emptiness, even separateness from God. So that's a lazy translation. It's terrible theology. So our version today, it said, do you see the power behind the shaking mountains and foaming oceans? Do you see that the destruction that happens on God's earth all the time? Do you see that in earthquakes and hurricanes and fires and floods? Okay. What should you do when you see that? Do not fear. And remember, those nations in an uproar happens all the time. Sometimes that brings people to war, but God always chooses peace, always. So what should we do? Do not fear. And here's the conclusion, the best part. The best part of Psalm 46, but I'm going to put it in a context that hopefully makes it even better. And the idea, this whole song, This whole psalm. The mountains are shaking. The oceans are in constant turmoil. You can't trust the government to take care of anything, or they're just going to fall into violence. Everything in our life can be a tumultuous mess. And in that mess, when we are just shaking with anger and fear and grief, God calls to you, be still. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that God is your refuge. God is liberation from the powers that hold people down. God is liberation from the powers that tear us apart. Now, someone once, a year or so ago, wrote me one of those nasty emails. I think every job gets them. I get them sometimes. Mine tend to be a little more biblically oriented. But someone wrote me one of those nasty emails, and it said, "Why does everything here have to be so woke? What happened to the gospel of good news?" Now, no. We're not woke. Nothing about this is woke. Jesus wasn't woke. Jesus knew the power of liberation. Jesus focused on the power of liberation for the world and for souls. Jesus knew, the prophets knew, the psalmists knew, the gospel writers knew. Every time that the church is sincere in its grace, the church knows that God is liberation. That is the lens by which we see our faith. The good news of liberation from the brokenness of the world and from the patterns of grief that accompany them is the good news. That's the principle, not wokeness. The good news is liberation to new life through the joy and the love and the hope that creates it. And if you don't believe that, God says, come and see. So Delirious sang a whole song as an echo to that liberation in Psalm 46 and as a model of how to dance upon injustice. And I think the most powerful part is right there at the end, when the last chord rings, when the lights go dim, when the dancing slows down. How will you join the liberation from all that trembles? Be still and know that God is God. Amen.